But we are in the girls' room, and we're here.
We are. All
and
right.
Olivia told me I can't say this, but we're here to fuck shit up.
I specifically said you could say that.
Off-gassing.
A scuba podcast
With host April and Olivia. I am very excited to bring you this special takeover episode for Women's Dive Day hosted by April and Olivia. Bringing their joy and laughter, they sit us down and speak about different career paths, finding balance, challenges faced being a woman in this industry, advice, tips, finding the right community, a game of red flags, green flags, and a maritime goodbye. It's an episode to enjoy, an episode not to be missed.
We're live.
We're back. Actually, we're in.
We're here for the first time.
Well, we've been on this show individually before. So, in a way, we're back. But we're together now.
We're back again here together for the first time.
Together for the first time.
All right. It's me, Olivia, and this is...
I am April.
And we are here.
Nick asked us to do a little takeover episode, so we're here, taking over and doing our thing, and we're going to talk all about women and diving and women stuff, because you know what's coming up? Women's Dive Day.
Women.
Go women. We love women. I'll tell you, I live and breathe women, so I'm very excited to be here.
Do you remember that, the Amanda show, In the Girls' Room?
No, but I love it.
Okay.
So that's what we're doing right now.
Well, I'll see myself out.
Maybe that's an American thing. I don't know. I'm a Canadian. We don't, I don't know. We didn't get that good of TV shows.
Didn't have the Amanda show?
No, we had, like, puppet shows and stuff.
Ugh.
Yeah, I know. A lot of puppets,
Rough.
a lot of claymation.
Okay, claymation slaps. Is Wallace and Gromit Canadian?
I do like Wallace. It might be. I don't know. But I do like Wallace and Gromit. I don't think it's Canadian.
Love Wallace
Have you
and
seen
Gromit.
Canadian TV? It's not that good. And I'm on Canadian TV. That's how I can tell you that it's okay, but our budgets are pretty low. So, anyways, yeah. But
well.
to sum it up, I've never seen the Amanda show. But we are in the girls' room, and we're here.
We are. All
And
right.
Olivia told me I can't say this, but we're here to fuck shit up.
I specifically said you could say that. In fact.
I can't wait. Okay. Well, Olivia, why don't you tell the people who you are?
My name's Olivia. If you don't know me,
You should.
Oh, spicy. I am a diver. That's why I'm here. Started diving in the Midwest. We'll give you the Spark Notes version of this because
Yeah.
let's just not drag it on. But Midwest, born and raised. I did about 6 years of diving in the Midwest before packing up and spending working my
Your 9 to 5?
No.
You're working your way.
So you work your life away just to pay for the timeshare down in Destin, Florida.
A little T Swift.
We got there in the end.
Yeah, you did.
I'm not in Destin, in fact, but I am in Florida. And I do spend my entire paycheck to live here.
Yeah.
But that's
But
neither
it's
here
worth
nor
it.
there.
You're getting your vitamin D and C.
Okay.
Well, it's true. You need the sun.
Right. I just thought you were going somewhere else with that first one.
It's Women's Dive Day. There's no D's allowed.
That's right. Keep them out. All right. Vitamin B only.
We're on the vitamin B.
Anyway.
This is going off the rails.
This is going really well. So, I'm in Florida, and I work as a dive safety officer for an aquarium management company as my full-time gigaroony. And then I do social media content creation stuff on the side.
And
And
you're
then I
killing it.
also have a little bit of a merch swimwear line thing that I also do a little on the side.
Which you're also killing.
Killing.
You're just out here taking names and kicking ass. Or is it
That's
kicking
right.
ass and taking names? I can't remember. But
Not sure.
how the turntables.
Right. So, with that being said, I'll kick it back to you, April.
Thank
You
you.
can
Thank you.
introduce yourself.
So I'm April. I am a Canadian. I live on the east coast of Canada in Nova Scotia,
Canada.
our home and native land. And I'm here in Nova Scotia. I am the manager at our local dive shop, Torpedo Ray Scuba. I also started the Sea Foxes Ladies Dive Club, which is the biggest ladies dive club in Canada. We've got over 400 members now, which is pretty cool. I basically, my entire life is diving. All I do is dive. I'm also an instructor, so I do lots of teaching. I manage, the retail side of diving, all that good stuff. And that's my life. That's what I do. That's me.
This is me.
I am a cold water diver, and some people, I don't know.
Proud
don't
of
like
it.
cold water, but I'm proud. I'm cold and I'm proud.
Diapered up and ready to go.
I've never worn a diaper in my dry suit, just to put that out there. Never have. Almost peed in it a couple times. Never have, but have come close.
Do you have a
But-
sheepy?
I do, but I don't wear it inside the dry suit. I use that when I take it off. I'm not doing insanely long dives.
Oh, sure.
Maybe if I was diving for hours, I'd wear a diaper. But really, my longest dives I'll do are maybe an hour and a half, hour
Right.
45 minutes in shallows. And I don't know, you just
You have bathroom
dehydrate
facilities?
yourself a little. There's woods and that kind of stuff. That's why I got the
sure.
sheepy. And but I don't know. Or you just wear a wetsuit and you let her rip.
Let her rip, ladies.
Let her rip. I asked Jill Heinerth once if she pees in her wetsuit. And she was like, well, I wouldn't say I necessarily go out of my way to pee in my wetsuit, but if I have to, I let her rip. And now that's why I say that, let her rip. Because if it's good enough for Jill, it's good enough for me.
I should make a t-shirt design that has something with let her rip, with
Let her
peeing
rip.
in a wetsuit.
Let her rip.
Let me write that down.
Yeah, write that down. That's your next fully submerged swimwear merch. Let her rip. Instead of a shark on the leg, you could just have pee coming out of the rash guard leg.
Well, I meant more of a graphic tee, but I suppose we could make peeing down the leg rash guard design. Sure.
That says let her rip on the back.
I'll consider it. I'll certainly
Okay.
consider it. I'll talk to my design team.
I should be your design team.
Well, currently the design team is me, so if you want to be on the board, we can get something together. Do a
Perfect.
couple of sketches.
I'll do a mock-up for you. I'll
right,
see what I can
perfect.
pull
Thanks.
together.
Thanks.
Yeah, good. So maybe
Perfect.
we should dive into this. We were talking about what we do for work, but kind of some different jobs and careers and that kind of stuff that you can kind of have in this industry and all that good stuff. So maybe you can kick it off and what exactly your jobs are, or maybe what jobs you've done in the past that, have been scuba related.
Yeah, so in my realm of scuba world, if you don't want to go the instructor route, there's obviously being an aquarist, which is kind of how I got my start into working as a diver. And there are roles at aquariums and stuff where you take care of fish tanks and whatnot that will be more heavy on the animal care side of things rather than just specifically diving. But there are aquariums too where they have separate sections. So there'll be an entire section that just does life support work, entire section that just or department, maybe that's the word I'm looking for. Entire department that just does animal care side of things, and an entire department that just does the diving. Now, when they have it split up like that, a lot of times it's more uncommon for the diving role to be paid. There's a lot of volunteer divers, but until you get further up the line, which is like my role as a dive safety officer, assistant dive safety officer, that kind of thing, that is then where like those roles are paid. And then a lot of times just the divers are volunteer staff. Occasionally, though, there are paid dive staff as well, but it usually comes when the aquarist and the divers are like one and the same. But just to set the expectation that in that kind of a role, you're not just diving. You're going to spend maybe like 20% of your time diving or less, and then the rest will be animal care duty kind of stuff. So yeah, that's like a biology degree and internships and animal care experiences that'll get you to that role. And then if you want to go the dive safety officer route, usually being like a technician for servicing gear is really helpful. Full face mask a lot of times. Aquariums that have the full face mask that do like talking little session things is a good certification to have. Then you get to read OSHA manuals and it's really fun.
I have 2 comments on that.
Yes.
Number 1, I would love to be take your kid to work day sometime and come and dive in the aquariums with you. So, if I'm ever in Florida, I'll come. And may I?
So
No.
you can come and watch me dive in the tank, but you probably can't get in the tank. Unless we could go to Epcot and dive with Kenny.
I would love that.
In that aquarium.
We should dive with Kenny. I would love that.
Yeah, we should do that.
Okay. Well, that's on our plan. Okay.
Maybe for DEMA. Is DEMA Orlando next year, yeah?
Mm-hmm. 2025.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unless you come sooner, but otherwise... DEMA Orlando, if we set maybe a couple of days or something before or after, and we could go dive with Kenny in the aquarium in Epcot.
I would love that. Okay, my other comment is, isn't it crazy that, and maybe I should save this for the end because so many dive jobs are unpaid and volunteered, yet you consider all of the time, effort, money that you have invested in not only like courses in your education, but the gear that you own and are using, all of the experience you've gotten has cost. I'm sure if I calculated it, I have spent way more money on diving and courses and equipment than I ever did on my university degree. Yet everyone seems to expect you to dive for free or volunteer your time. Even dive masters, a lot of dive masters are unpaid.
Yeah, it is wild. And I hope it's something that eventually kind of go away from as an industry. But I think the thing is scuba diving is seen so much as this dream job, ideal, whatever. So there's tons of people that will do it for free because it's fun and cool. Which then means, why would I pay you when there's 15 people waiting in line behind you to do it for less?
True.
So that's a little bit of the issue.
Yeah, and then I also think, though, as professional divers, we kind of need to stand together and set a standard of our worth. Because if someone's going to, undercut, then everybody's going to undercut. And I mean, I think I'm valuable. So no matter whether I'm teaching or I'm working on TV or whatever it is, I think my skill is valuable. I think the time and effort I've put into getting this skill is valuable, and I think it deserves to be compensated. But you're right. There is always someone there who's willing to do it for less. But I think it's nice when we can all come together and kind of be like, well, I think this is the standard we should all hold ourselves at. And
right.
Yeah. But anyhow, I just thought of that when you said that a lot of the divers dive basically as volunteer work in the aquariums.
Yeah, and I think having a little bit of volunteer work at aquariums is okay. There's a lot of times the education staff out on the floor of aquariums are volunteer staff, and it's a good way for older people.
True.
To have something that they can still be involved in and do and things like that. And so same thing with the diving, when there's older people that come in and, they're retired and keeps them active and involved in something. I do like that, but it's a balance, I think, is the important thing.
I agree. Yeah, I think there's definitely a healthy level of volunteer work, a healthy level of just community involvement. But yeah, also a degree of paying people what they
Correct.
deserve. Yeah,
Right.
I like that. All right.
Good thoughts.
Good. Good thoughts. Of course, too, within our scuba careers in this industry, you're going to find people who are teaching. Me and you are both IDC staff instructors. So that's a pretty obvious one. I think when people think of having a career in this industry, like teaching comes up. So instructors, dive masters, all that good stuff, and working in a dive shop. But kind of outside of these, I don't know what you would call this, the cookie cutter jobs, the standard ones that come to everyone's mind, is there's also a bunch of kind of little sub jobs that come up. So I know for me, that's kind of led me into the TV world a bit. I stunt doubled in a movie because I was a diver, which that opportunity literally just fell into my lap. I was working in the dive shop. I think it was the actual stunt team was in here like picking up wetsuits or something. And they were basically like, do you dive? And I was like, yes, I do. And they're like, you look just like the main actress in this movie that we're filming, and she needs to dive, but she doesn't dive. Essentially, do you want to be your stunt double? And I was like, hell yeah, I do. So I got to stunt double in a movie, which then you realize there are people who have made full scuba careers out of stunt doubling. So for me, it was kind of like a one-time special thing. But that is totally a way that you can go, is in the film realm.
There's also like safety divers for like Cirque du Soleil is like a whole thing, whether it's the traveling one or the one in Vegas. That's an entire career, just safety diving for shows and movies, productions, things like that.
Yep. 100%. And even safety divers. My fiance Josh used to work at Survival Systems, which is underwater helicopter escape training. And they have safety divers in the water for the underwater helicopter escape. So basically, when they flip these people underwater in the helicopter and they have to get out, there's a whole crew of safety divers there ready if someone gets stuck. So there is just so much that you can do in here. So don't, I guess, feel like you are stuck working as an instructor or working in a dive shop, because there's so many places to go with your career in scuba. And
for sure.
I want to do them all. I'm going to dip my toes in all of them. Maybe
Right.
one day. I don't know. I want to try.
Yeah, research, scientific divers,
Yes.
all sorts of things.
Lots of scientific diving, yeah, there's a lot of places to go with this. But I guess within your career so far in the industry, like what would you say some of your biggest hurdles have been and that you've had to overcome?
For me, I think it's because I do a bunch of different things to make up my career. It's like being able to balance all of it. So instead of just being able to just, go one route where I have one job, I juggle a lot of different jobs. And so keeping my schedule and my sanity while I'm doing all these things, particularly like as I'm being an aquarist full time, I was getting my instructor certification, becoming an MSDT, becoming a staff instructor as I'm working a full-time job, and I'm teaching on the weekends, and I'm making social media content and just a lot of times with the scuba thing, like most things, once you actually get in the water and like actually are doing the diving portion, like there's so much that happens leading up to that and after that in terms of having your equipment, or if you're teaching and paperwork and all that kind of stuff, that like not getting burnt out, exhausted from everything that happens before you clock in, technically.
Yeah, exactly.
Is another thing that I've like tried to really balance over the years, and being like, okay, what are the this is precisely why I don't teach anymore. This and a lot of other things, but it's like, which things are worth my time and make me happy and are in a direction towards where my personal goals are, and which things are not. And the teaching, just the time to pay off, not only just personally for what I take from it, but also monetarily, is not panning out for me. So I'm going to step aside from this one and focus my energy and mental capacity and just actual physical time onto other aspects.
Yeah, that's a great one. And honestly, I relate to that a lot, the balance of everything, because you're so right. When it comes to scuba, you kind of dip your toes in everything and you have like a million things on the go. And I think it is rare for someone with like a full-time gig in scuba to literally have one job. I mean, I know I work in the dive shop, but kind of my teaching is additional to my job. That's not built into my like 40-hour work week. So any courses that I'm teaching, that's after like I clock off or on the weekends, like you said. I also have a TV show here in Nova Scotia, so all of that filming is done outside of my normal work hours. So there's a million things that you're kind of trying to juggle, and it's a good point to basically be like, what juice is worth the squeeze? So what is
That's a
worth
great
your
line.
time? Yeah, what juice is worth the squeeze? Like, is it worth it to go and spend your weekend doing this? Is it worth it to wake up at 5 a.m. to go and do this? So balance is a huge one. That was my goal for 2024. I tried to pick a word or like to kind of represent my year, and I felt like last year I had such terrible work-life balance. All I did was work. So this year my word is balance. Try to have fun, but also work and make money and be successful, but enjoy my life.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I would say another hurdle that I've kind of faced, and maybe this is a bit more specific to being a woman in the industry, is just being taken seriously. And I think it's partially being a woman. I think it's partially my age, especially when I kind of started. Like, I was assistant manager of Torpedo Rays at 21. So I was pretty young when I started having a professional role in the dive shop. And I was constantly questioned, oh, is there someone around I can talk to who knows about gear? Oh, is there someone around who could tell me about an open water course? And different questions like that. And I found it would either like fuel the fire and I'd be like, I need to prove them wrong and tell them everything I know. Or it would just like beat me down and I would just be like, I cannot do the same thing every single day. Like I can't keep fighting the exact same fight every single day. And it's definitely gotten better as I've gotten older, and I've worked at Torpedo Rays now for 10 years. So I think too, a lot of our customer base knows me so that they know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. But I definitely still get, Joe Blow who walks in here and, asks if there is, I've literally had someone say, is there a man around? Or it's like, oh, the guy back there, can I talk to him? And, different things like that. So I would kind of say that's been one of my biggest hurdles. I think it's just being taken seriously.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely had a share of those experiences throughout my journey as well.
Which is too bad.
Yeah.
Because we're cool and we know what we're talking about. We're pretty smart.
I usually just don't speak on the things I don't know what I'm talking about.
I am the same. And I admit it when I don't know what I'm talking about.
I do this fun thing where I just keep my mouth shut unless I know what I'm saying.
Yeah. It's like, unless I know what I'm talking about, I'm not going to talk.
Or I preface with, I could be wrong. This
Yes.
is my understanding or something
Don't
like that.
Don't quote me on it.
Yeah, something like that.
Or you're not afraid to go and ask someone who actually does know it,
Right.
instead of bullshitting. I'm like, you know what? Let me go ask. Or like, let me go. You should go talk to this person because they know a lot more about that topic than I do.
Right.
Yeah, rather than bullshitting. That's good. I like that. A little passive aggressive. I'm picking up what you're putting down. So aside from our professional careers, let's just talk about being divers and like having fun and recreational diving and good times. What's the best piece of advice you would say that you have received as a diver? Maybe on your early on ages, or maybe it's now. I don't know. What's your best advice that you've received?
I don't know if this is necessarily advice given specifically to me or something that I just kind of picked up along the way through my experiences, but I think like always continuing to learn more and never getting comfortable in that, like kind of in the same vein of what we were just talking about, where it's like, don't be the know-it-all. There is like an infinity of information and everything's still like evolving and changing and stuff, that if you ever get into that, I've done it all, I am the scuba keeper of all knowledge, and I know best, that's when I feel like you start becoming like the worst version of yourself and as a diver.
I agree.
Yeah. Always learning, always continuing to absorb information, listen to others, and take tips and advice and knowledge from those around you, and being able to adapt and change.
100%. That's great advice. And and just like keep learning, like you said. And one thing which is along the exact same lines of what you're saying is be the student again. So even though we're instructors, I continually do something that makes me a student again. Like recently, I took up side mount diving, and I feel like an open water diver because everything is new. It's all thrown off. But I also think for my own instructing career, it's really good because I can relate to my students and I know what it's like to be new, and it humbles you a little bit and shows there's so much to learn. And I'm not a marine biologist, and there's a lot I can learn about fish ID. And I know, like, when I'm guiding people around Nova Scotia, they start asking me specific questions about certain species here, and I can identify them, but I don't always know why they're doing what they do. And I've always thought, that's another branch that you can start to learn about. So there's always something to learn, like you're saying. And just basically don't become a cocky diver who knows everything. Yeah, that's a good one.
What about you?
I would say it's not so much, it was kind of advice, but it wasn't a full sentence. When I first started diving, there was 2 instructors at Torpedo Rays, and Nick and Joe. And they kind of took me under their wing and said, like, you can come diving with us, like, whenever you want. But we're instructors. We're going to do the dives we want to do, go to the dive sites we want to go to. So you're going to kind of have to keep up if you want to come. And honestly, that was like the best thing I could have done because I was kind of just like thrown into the fire. I had to keep up. I had to do dives and just like make it happen. And honestly, I think it made me the diver I am today. I was diving with really experienced divers who were good divers. They would give me good tips and tricks, but they also didn't baby me, I guess, to a point where I felt like they were doing everything for me and I wasn't actually learning. Like, I was setting up my own equipment. I was doing my own entries. I was managing my own air consumption, my own depths, everything like that. And it made me a really good diver. Because I think we've all seen those divers who maybe dive on trips and they've only ever dove with a dive master. Some of them don't know how to set up their own equipment. Some of them are like, well, I have 100 dives, but I've never not been guided, and this kind of stuff. So I think for me, that was kind of the best thing I could have done when I was learning to dive. Just dive with people experienced, and I don't know if try to keep up is the right word, but basically like just, I don't know, have some like independence, I guess, in a like safe learning environment.
Right. I think I was a very similar experience to that when I first started diving. Was immediately like all the dive buddies that I dove with locally were all, I don't even think any of them were dive masters. They were literally dive instructors or higher. I was going out with them for fun dives. So they absolutely were super, just like you were saying, like patient and coaching with things along the way. But it also was not about to be a dive where they sat there and they did a full like instruction level of information for me. It was like, we're willing to help you along, but at the same time, we're out here diving for ourselves, not for work. Just to go, have fun. And so don't make this be a babysitting situation.
100%.
And so, I immediately was like, my buoyancy better have at least some level of handle on it and getting my gear and everything, or that was going to end quickly.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was not in a like mean or anything, way, but just in a like, I wanted to be respectful of their time and they helped me along.
Yeah, they took you under their wing. It's good.
Sharp learning curve right off the get-go.
Yes. I think so too. But it was good for me. And I think
Yeah.
it's the reason I'm a good diver today. And like you said, yeah, it's like pushing yourself a healthy level. I mean, I wasn't, dive 5 doing crazy deep dives or bottomless dives or anything. So it was safe. But I was definitely like, I had a certain level that I also was like, okay, I need to keep up with these guys and I need to do what they're doing. And they are supportive, but they weren't holding my hand kind of thing. And yeah, but I guess at that same breath, then my advice to the next person is just go. I think a lot of times as a new diver, you're like a little bit shy and you're like, oh, well, like my buoyancy isn't that good yet. Or like I might have a couple of questions. Just go and dive. And if you have questions, 99.9% of the time, people are happy to answer them. And just kind of push yourself that healthy amount to get out and be a better diver. Because really, if you don't get out of that like super, super comfortable like space, you're not going to advance. So as long as you're doing that in a safe and healthy way, it's going to advance your diving and get you to be more comfortable and make you a better diver at the end of the day. So just go. Don't be shy. Just go.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Not sponsored.
Not sponsored. We're the same person sometimes. All right. We're going to get into that was kind of advice, but we're going to get into a little advice segment here because we will speak our words of wisdom right after where you're talking about not being cocky.
Let's get cocky.
So what would your advice be for specifically female divers?
I think that finding the right community of divers to dive in is going to be your key between it being a good time. That's like, scuba diving, you're going out to dive, I assume, for relaxation, stress relief, fun, hobby, whatever. And it going from that fun, enjoyable time to a not fun and toxic environment is the difference between you having a good community and you not having a good community. And the good thing about diving is that you shouldn't have to dive with people that don't align with that.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing about it is that once you get underwater, you don't have to see or hear from them anyway. But finding your people in the dive community that you click with and mesh with, I think is
crucial.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. That was my advice, so you stole my advice.
Oops.
It was literally going to be find a good community, find good dive buddies. But that just goes to show how important it is. Because that, just to basically repeat what you said, yes, find good people to dive with because it will make or break your experience. I mean, if you're keep diving and you're going out with a group of people who you just don't mesh with, it's not going to be a good time because underwater, yes, it's a silent sport. We aren't really talking to each other. You basically have an hour to blow bubbles and swim around and look at pretty fish and cool wrecks and all that good stuff. But on the surface, there is absolutely a social aspect to it. So if you enjoy the people that you're around and you have a good bond, it is just such an incredible experience. And we've all dove with shitty people that were like, I'm not going to dive with you again because I didn't have fun.
Yeah. There's also, too, I guess I made the point and so did you that, like, underwater, you're not talking or whatever. But there's also very different styles of diving underwater that you could not mesh with a person underwater as well. Like, whenever somebody pairs a photographer with a non-photographer, I'm always like, oh, boy.
It's not going to be good.
It just, if it's something that, like, they've met for the very first time, sometimes there are buddies that are photographers and not photographers that, like, they have their jive and whatever. But usually when it's people that just randomly get paired together and it's like one person's there to photograph and one person's there to just dive, it's like those are two very different dive styles. And neither one is right or wrong, but they have two completely different objectives. And together, it doesn't always work unless the diver is like somebody who's really into looking in small areas for little tiny things while the photographer is sitting around trying to set up their camera and all that. But otherwise, it's just one person constantly like, oh my gosh, I'm waiting on you. I want to get going. Like, it just doesn't mesh. So having also the same, kind of
Same buddy.
find somebody that has the same objective for the dive as you is pretty important.
And if you can find a dive buddy that you're just like married to, it's the best. And I don't mean like literally married, just like you and this buddy go out together all of the time and you continuously dive with this person. It's a really beautiful thing because you kind of learn how each other dive, you know what each other are into, where you're going to spend your time. You learn about each other's air consumption, your comfort levels, all this kind of stuff. And it's just, it's such a beautiful thing. I know for myself, like Jen, Alana, Sarah, and Julia, who are on the show with me, like the five of us just dive together so well. And it's a beautiful thing.
It's almost also like an unspoken language that you learn when you dive with people a lot, because just having all that experience with each other underwater, there's limited hand signals, unless you know sign language, which lucky you, but there's limited communication, obviously, when you're underwater. But when you're diving with people regularly, you start to like pick up, not only if you like know the person well, you kind of understand like, where they're thinking a little bit, but you'll kind of be able to have these hand signals or communication things, and you can kind of basically say nothing and like just look at each other and maybe give like a little bit of some sort of cue, and you'll know exactly what each other are talking about, what direction you're giving, what thing you're laughing at or whatever, that when you don't know somebody, you like don't have that as much.
Exactly.
Game changer.
It is a game changer. So find a good community, find some good buddies, all that good stuff. That's great advice. What would you say your advice would be to a professional female diver?
This one, I always say that you like cannot be timid and scared to like speak up. You have to be able to like stand up for yourself, because there are definitely times where you might get walked over, or even don't be the kind of person that's like, oh, I don't want to cause waves or whatever. Obviously, you don't need to start shit just to start shit. There's a certain level of picking and choosing your battles. Even so, there's also a lot of like, this is something that I've found like throughout my life, where I think just by having that kind of personality of that, I'm like, if you think I'm the person that's going to keep my mouth shut and not say anything and you'll get away with it, you're wrong. Just having that personality, I think that I have avoided having a lot of situations, because a lot of times toxic, or you know what I mean, those kinds of people can seek out people that are the timid, quiet, they know they can get away with it type. So I think I do a decent amount of scaring off.
You are really good at scaring off.
Yeah.
You really are. And I'm not even being sarcastic. I'd be scared of you. You don't fuck with Olivia. You just let her do her.
Yeah, no, it's definitely been a thing literally throughout my entire life. Like, I'm not big and scary, but I'm small and scary.
Yeah, small but mighty.
But yeah, and there are some drawbacks to that. Obviously, there are some lines that I have to be like, Olivia, you could be a little bit more approachable, baby. So I don't mean this to take it, to 100%, but I just mean that, like, I definitely think I do not attract certain conflicts.
I think people know that you have a no bullshit tolerance, and I think you portray that well. You portray it professionally. I understand exactly what you're saying. You don't come off as someone who's like, oh, well, like, You're very just like, this is how it's going to be, and this is what it is. And if you don't like that, then we're going to have a problem, which is okay, especially when, maybe as a professional, whether it's teaching or in your job. I mean, the reality is that it's safety. People can't be messing around when you are in charge. Yeah. So, I mean, I get it. I get what you're saying. Be a boss bitch. Hell yeah. Boss babe, maybe. Yeah.
Have a
boss
big,
babe.
big
No,
mouth.
Boss bitch. Yeah. Yeah. I like it. 100%. I'm with you.
What about you?
I would say my advice to professional women in diving is kind of similar, but it's like, don't feel like you have to act like a man. if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So don't feel you have to, I don't know, pretend to be a man in your, like, I'm going to use teaching as my example. I know a lot of women, and our strong suits is that we are like gentle and we speak nicely and like a little bit maybe more nurturing sometimes, and use that to your advantage, because I have had so many cases where I've had male instructors and they're like, I can't get this student to do this skill, because they're like, do the skill. Do the skill. I don't know. And then, you know, I come in, my teaching style, I mean, to be honest, is quite like soft and nurturing, but I do think I'm a good instructor. But I make the person feel really supported, and I'm very positive, and we get them through the skill. And the person, you know, the other instructor is like, how the hell did you get them to do that? And it's like, because I supported them and I made them feel safe. And so don't feel necessarily like you do have to come in and be like a drill sergeant because you've seen someone else do it. Use whatever personality traits that you have. And like you said, that you don't take shit. Use that to your advantage. And whatever you are, just be that. And like, let that be your instructor characteristics, whatever it is. I love pink. I feel like I have branded my life pink. And some people are going to hate that. But, you know, I've made a really successful women's dive club with that. And everything is pink and rainbows and unicorns. I don't know. It's amazing. And, you know, there's a lot of people who'd be like, that's never going to work. But it does. So just be you and you're going to do great.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because it's also something that I could, on my no bullshit, a little too intense sometimes, that like the gentle side can exist as well. And
there is a gentle side. Yeah.
Yeah. And that can be a positive and an asset, or like an asset. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. 100%.
For sure. Yeah, no, there's also, especially with that too, and like in teaching other women to dive, but also I think there's plenty of men too that kind of come in as students with that toxic masculinity like cloud over their head where they want to be all tough. And something I found in teaching that you need to remind them a lot of is that it's a whole new environment. Your body's entering an entire new environment that it's never experienced before. I mean, granted, you go swimming, but swimming and diving are not exactly the same.
Yes.
So essentially a whole new environment for your body to experience that's not natural for it. Whole new set of gear, et cetera, that when things don't click immediately, people get really frustrated and kind of like beat up on themselves. Like I said, particularly women, but even with men, sometimes they're struggling and they don't want to show that they're struggling. And having that like gentle side to be like, it's totally fine. I find like kids a lot, like sometimes the kids will get things like really quickly because they're so adaptive and they're so used to being in a learning environment, especially when I have a kid in a class who's just breezing through. And then the adults are like sitting there going, I'm struggling. And this 14-year-old
is flying through it,
is having no problem at all, that they like even more get down on themselves. And I'm like, you guys, we gotta, like, it's okay. Like, this is so much information. This is information, feeling, like experience, like there's so many new things happening. Give yourself that patience to adapt to it. And it's fine. It's fine.
I tell all of my students, and I mean, I don't even, say this to be funny. I'm like, you are all my scuba babies. And not just because I'm the instructor and, I'm responsible for you all. It's because you are literally scuba babies. You are learning everything for the first time. Most likely you're breathing underwater for the first time. You've probably never really swam around with fins or anything like that. So you literally are a scuba baby right now. You're just learning to dive. But yeah, so I literally call my students scuba babies, not to be funny, not because I'm the instructor, because you are literally a baby in the underwater environment.
Yeah, so that gentleness is particularly helpful in a teaching role. Feminine, comforting, gentle side.
Embrace it.
Is a huge asset to have, particularly as an instructor, but I'm sure in other roles as well.
Yeah, embrace it. Embrace the feminine patient, nurturing, kind of like, I don't know, just typically like women are, and I shouldn't say all women, but I know myself, that's kind of, I have that. And why wouldn't I use that and have all the patience and be a little bit softer and make people feel safe and welcome and all these things rather than being like, rah, do it. And then they're scared and uncomfortable. So embrace it. Just be authentic. Be whoever you are, and you're going to be a great pro.
Be who you wanna be.
Barbie girl.
Barpie.
I knew that
Barbie
one.
girl. There we go.
Love it. What would you say your advice to men to support women would be in the diving world?
Yeah, I think along what we were just talking about,
Yeah.
and like having you are allowed to tap into your feminine side a smidgen
Yes.
bit and be a little bit more gentle sometimes, be a little bit more caring, and that toxic mask cloud does not have to be looming over your head at all times. You are allowed to push it aside a little bit and be a little bit more vulnerable, to just relax a little. Sometimes I feel like
Yes.
you don't have to be like the best in the room, the smartest.
You don't have to be the hero.
Yeah, you don't have to be a hero. We can all be dumb together. We can make some stupid little, like, again, safe. Like, I'm not saying just be silly, goofy to where we're being unsafe, but I mean, like,
Relax.
when little mistakes and stuff happen, we can just let that slide off our shoulder, figure it out, problem solve on the fly. We don't have to do any belittling of each other. We don't, like, we want to, let's just be understanding and supportive, I think, is one thing. And then also just making sure that you're leaving room for women to have a space as well.
I think a big thing too, just along exactly what you're saying, is you have nothing to prove. You don't have to prove yourself. If you're a good diver, if you're a good instructor, if you're a good whatever, it's just going to be obvious. You don't have to prove yourself. You don't have to prove yourself to anyone. You don't even have to prove yourself to yourself. Like, just go out there, be yourself, be authentic, and everything will fall right into place. So let's just, I like it. Great advice. God.
Great advice.
We should do a podcast or something.
That'll wrap it up for our advice column here today.
So now that we're done with advice, we're going to go into tips.
It's different. It's not the same.
True.
Tips and advice are different.
Advice is like a variable, whereas a tip is like, this is what it is.
There you go.
Yeah. So how do you do your hair when you dive?
Hairdo, hair talk. We're back in the girls' room. Let's talk hair, ladies.
It's the Amanda show.
It's the April and Olivia show.
All right. Let's talk hair.
Long-haired ladies, long-haired men, okay? Here's what I do. I braid it. It's not that interesting.
That's also what I was going to say.
And the thing is that a braid is not even that. I think these bald scuba men are the ones who really got it figured out, because honestly, I don't know that there's like a winning hairstyle that doesn't make it a massive tangled mess, but braids are
Up
the
there.
closest you're going to get to having it slightly less tangly.
I agree.
Pigtails, just one single braid. If you can do
Like a
French braid or any of those fancy ones, those are good.
Dutch braid.
Yeah.
I think above just like your hair do, it's sometimes product. So, of course, using like good reef safe, shout out Stream to Sea, their leave-in conditioner. If you like just drench your hair in a good leave-in conditioner with a braid, that's going to make a big difference. Coconut oil in your hair, that kind of stuff. It really, really helps. And for me, being a cold water diver, a hood. Hood makes a huge difference, because then your hair isn't all loose in the water, tangling, doing, what is that, Medusa or something, doing your Medusa thing. It's just kind of like locked in, so it doesn't move that much. And if you have a really like good fitting hood, sometimes your hair doesn't even get fully wet.
Ooh.
Yeah, and I'm a hood girl. Like, I just love hoods. I wear hoods all the time.
In the hood with April.
in the hood with April. Like, I was just diving in the Red Sea. It was like 82 degrees in the water, and I wore a 10 millimeter hood. Like, I just love me a good hood. I get cold. Hoods keep you so much warmer. Like, it's not even funny. And it just, like, I don't know. I just feel, like, locked in. It's like you're in the zone. You got your little hood on. Olivia always tells me I'm cute in a hood, too.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. I was like, this is also some privileged talk from April, who is literally, I think, one of the only people on this planet I have ever seen who looks good in a hood.
I just love my hood. The hood loves me. I love my hood. The hood loves me.
A massive amount of your body heat escapes out of your head, which is why wearing a hood is like, you know, is going to make you warmer than, you know, if you go from a 5 to a 7 on your body. Obviously, that'll make you warmer, but the hood is going to make the more significant difference in what you feel because of the heat escaping through your head. But even if you're in warm water, if you don't want to wear a full-on hood, you could do like those do-rags or headband.
Skin hood too.
Those
Anything.
things.
Just lock you in.
If you're that mood. I tend to be bothered by those things, so I just do the braid and then...
You're not a hood girl.
Not a hood girl.
I am.
I can't survive in those streets, you know?
I wear hoods in the pool.
I wouldn't make it.
I just love a good hood. And it also keeps the water out of your ears. Like, it just, I don't know. Sure. I don't want little bits of coral going in my ear canals. Like, God, just keep me protected.
Yeah. No, there's tons of benefits to it. So, for sure, definitely. But, yeah, I go the leave-in conditioner and braids.
You're a non-hood girl. You're a braid girl.
Yeah, and then I just rip those braids out after and rake a comb through it. Have you tried those? I think it's like
wet
the Rip
brush.
Tie. No. Well, yes, wet brushes are amazing, but
they are amazing.
The Rip Tie hair thing where it's like a pony and then it has like an
I've seen
elastic with a pony at the bottom.
Tried.
I want to try it. I think it will work similarly to a braid where it like helps, but it's not necessarily like vastly better. It's the same effect as a braid. I just wonder if it's
you like coil it.
If it's way quicker to put on than braiding my hair out, so that I can put a hairband on, wrap, band it, get in the water. Mm-hmm. Not that a braid takes terribly long, but like
longer than you want it to.
Yeah, like when, you know, you have an early morning dive.
When you're in a rush.
Early morning dive, it's like, I'm already getting up at 6. I don't want to get up at 5:30 so I can put a couple of braids in my... Here's another tip for you guys, actually, on the hair. Sometimes I am a night shower. I don't know if you're a morning or a night shower. I'm a night shower.
I'm a night shower girl.
So sometimes before a dive, if it's early morning, I will, after the shower at night, braid my hair with wet hair. Then it's also like when I wake up, it's a little tighter when you braid it wet than when you braid it dry. And there'll be a few stragglies that come out from sleeping at night, but whatever. And then my hair's already ready to go for the morning. I can just pop in the car or pop out to the whatever. I'm at a resort or something, and off I go.
Yeah, at a resort.
Yeah, I love it when you are at a resort and you can just walk down to the dock.
It's amazing.
And the boat's right there, and you just...
Such luxury.
They already have your gear all set up and everything.
Oh, my God. You're talking my language.
Yeah. That's what we call foreplay.
You know that Maya Rudolph, like little, what do you call it? Like not a GIF, but like, you know, you've been seeing all the like memes, and she's, I guess this is a podcast. You can't see my face, but she's like, that's how I feel when you talk about a resort and just walking to the boat in the morning and your gear's already there. It's amazing.
It's your scuba foreplay.
That's right. Let's talk about another tip, and that is very female specific, and that would be menstruation.
That's right. Well, menstruating people.
What would your advice be there?
Cups. Always a cup.
Cups.
The answer is cups. Honestly, here's the thing. Let me tell you something.
Tell me something.
Here's a little trigger warning for you boys. If you want to hear the intimate stories, if you want to hear the intimate stories of Olivia's pubescent stages, then don't listen. Skip ahead.
Scroll forward.
I started using a cup probably maybe... trying to think, actually. I would say less than 5 years ago.
Okay.
All right, so relatively new in the terms of my menstruating.
career.
Yes. And let me tell you, the absolute crisis I went through when I was like, I had how many traumatizing periods before getting this freaking cup. I'm like, the amount of times in middle school that I'm like bleeding through, fear just all day at school, fearing like I'm, you know, you have that thing where you like stand up, class is over, you like stand up, bell rings, whatever, and you like feel like, sorry, trigger warning,
I
sorry,
get it.
the gush. You feel that gush and you're like, oh my God. And then you're just like, oh shit, I just bled through or whatever. And even when you didn't, it's like constantly on your mind. Like,
Yes.
I put a freaking cup in and it's a little bit of adjustment period. I will be honest with that. You have to be a little bit more intimate with yourself to put it in and take it out. But beyond that, if you put that sucker in right, which you can feel when you've done it right, it kind of it's the best way. The best way I can explain how it feels when it you kind of feel it like suction up in there. Once it's in there and it's in there correctly, which I think I've only ever put it in wrong once, and again, that was at the very beginning when I was first learning how to do it. But
Yeah.
that is sealed in there. You can pop it in there and leave it all day if you need to, not mess with it, and not have to worry about a GD thing.
And you're
Doesn't
ready
have
to
to
rock
cross your
and
mind.
roll.
You're not going to bleed through. You're not going to get toxic shock. You're not going to nothing. Just leave it. It doesn't have to cross your mind.
You're just good to go.
Yeah. Oh, if you're obviously with scuba diving, you're going in the water and stuff. It's not going to fill up with water. You just don't even just put it in and don't have to think about it. So if you're not in the cup game, get on the cup game. I did some research to find out, like, based on my flow and things like that. I just like looked up like what were beginner friendly ones to start, because there's different brands that make ones that are more flexible, less flexible, things like that. And then there's sizes for how heavy or light your flow is. So I just did some research to find some information on one that was seemed to fit the things that I needed. Read like probably, I don't know. I'm psychotic a little bit, and when I research something, I'll like 5 articles isn't enough, make it 20.
Yeah, you go all in. That's part of what I love about you. You don't half-ass anything.
Well, I watched YouTube videos. I like read different articles on them and whatever until I landed on one that was like a brand that I was like, oh, okay, like I'll try this one. And I didn't ever have to buy one after that. It's the one I still use to this day. So
also good for the environment.
Yeah, also period products are stupid expensive. So screw that. I haven't bought period products in, like I said, probably like 5 some years now. I just use my cup and it's great.
And there you go. That is the advice. I would give advice, but I have birth control that doesn't make me menstruate, so I have no advice to give. I guess that's my advice.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Well, I did that for a few years. I was on the pill for quite a while, where I spoke to my doctor and didn't take the placebo week. I would go right into the next pack. So you can skip periods that way if you don't want to deal with it. Again, speak to your doctor. Make sure they give you a doctor recommendation.
And it's right for you.
But for me, it was like they were like, we recommend that every 3 months you
have one.
You have one, and I sometimes did, sometimes didn't.
Yeah.
But I always saw my OBGYN every year anyway, so we just made sure we're all good.
Yeah, I have an IUD, so it kind of is just, she's in there, and I just do my thing, and then, I don't know, I have no advice to give. I haven't had a period in like over half a decade, so.
But that is advice.
That is my advice, I guess, yeah.
It's, if you're interested in that route to not have to deal with a period, then go see your doctor and see if that's a good thing for you.
And I mean, honestly, it is great for diving because it's something now I just don't really even take into consideration or worry about.
Right.
And I'm in the water a lot, so I guess it's just one thing off my plate of this world being a woman that I
Yeah,
don't worry about. So, yeah, but
exactly.
I'm glad you could speak on the cup because I think that's a super important one. And a lot of girls use it and maybe want to try it, but it's scary. And I think you're selling it. I'm buying what you're selling.
The cup rocks. It really rocks. It rocks my world. And the other thing about it is that if you're like scared or grossed out by it, just know that I am a very squeamish individual when
Same.
it comes to blood and vein. Well, just, I don't know. Sometimes I literally tell you one time I almost passed out when in school they passed out the physical forms for like if you're doing spring sports. They had like a stack of them from the doctor that they brought, and we're like, if anybody's doing spring sports, like make sure you pick up your physical form so you can go get it done, blah, 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 whatever. The smell of the office on those forms almost had me passing out in English class in 8th grade. So,
I'm like that. I'm like that now. I'm just
annoying.
bleh. I am a squeamish person.
I say that just to mean that if I can get past
You can do it.
shoving a silicone cup up my woo-ha, so can you.
Yeah.
I believe in you.
Yeehaw. We can all do it. Giddy up.
Giddy
Let's
up.
go. I feel like we've been talking for a long time, but there's we've got a lot of stuff. Maybe we'll touch on like a couple more things and then we'll wrap it up. But no?
Yes.
No? Oh, yes? No?
Nope.
Yes?
We're done.
I thought you were
I'm
like,
logging
no,
off.
we need to do this whole show.
I'm logging off.
This is our problem, is we've prepared far too much content.
I guess we'll have to take over again.
Nick's just going to have to bring us back because we have a whole lot of stuff. Would you rather talk about gear, finding buddies, or should we just jump right into our red and green flags?
I think we should touch on we should have touched on finding buddies when we were talking about
Community.
community, but we should touch on that and then we can wrap it up with our red flags, green flags.
Okay. Yeah, because that's funny. So let's talk about finding buddies.
Finding buddies.
Back when we were talking about finding a good community, how do you find a good community? What exactly do you do when you're a diver and you're trying to find buddies in your area to go and dive with? I mean, if you follow either of us on Instagram, you saw our hilarious reel lately about what doesn't work for finding dive buddies.
That's right. So there's lots of things. So to the reel that me and April made, there's an app called Dive with Buddy. This is a newer, new generation 2024, fresh off the press way to find dive buddies is download the app and you can turn on the buddy radar and it will anyone else who's turned on their radar, it'll show divers that are in your area and you can filter for different criteria. I should talk to them about adding some more criteria because things like we talked earlier with like photographer
True.
and like, so I'll probably
Even precise the selection a little bit more.
yeah, we can because they can add these little things, whatever.
Yeah,
Anyway,
because right now you can do gender, there's age, all these different things to kind of help you find a buddy who is, what you want.
right. And then you can also add on trip radar. So if you're going on a trip somewhere or you're going to be in a different area or whatever, even in a different area of the state or something, and you want to find people in that area, you can put on a radar for a time frame in a different area and find people there so that you can contact them prior to your trip and schedule, message, meetup, whatever, to do dives. So that's super cool. I think is a great new addition to finding buddies because previously your other options are mainly like Facebook groups.
Hanging around a dive shop, hoping someone comes in.
Yeah, just less. The thing with Facebook groups is they can sometimes still be very effective. It just tends to pull more to the boomer audience. Sorry.
Yes. Yeah, it's true.
And it's not always a bad thing necessarily. I have plenty of buddies that are older and they can be fabulous buddies. I met this lady four ladies on a boat last weekend, but one in particular who is an absolute rock star. We're Facebook friends now. She's like 70 something.
Hell yeah.
I want her to be my best friend. She was incredible. So anyway, my point is to not say that there aren't boomers that can be so much fun and great dive buddies, but just that you're limiting your group to being that, and So Facebook groups, hang around your local dive shop. If your local dive shop does local dives or little dive events or things, go to them.
Yes.
It's terrifying. In Minnesota, our dive shop did an event called Scuba Palooza every year.
Yes. And
let me just give you advice. My first year was trying to go to it before I knew anybody, had a panic attack, did not go. Don't be like that.
No, just go.
Show up.
Just last night, the Sea Foxes, my ladies dive club, we had a dip and sip event.
Oh, yeah?
And we all went to the pool. And we did like a little, summer's just getting here in Nova Scotia. It was just winter, and a lot of people don't dive over the winter, which is understandable. So we had a little warm up in the pool, a little pool session, refreshing our skills, going over equipment, all that fun stuff. And then we went and had a little social afterwards. So we called it a dip and sip. And so many women showed up by themselves, and they left, and we were all hanging out, having a drink after the dive. And they left making like 20 friends last night. So just put yourself out there a little bit and, find a cool little community that you mesh with.
Yeah, there's some dive shops down here that do like wine and canvas nights and like bowling fundraiser events or random other things like that. So show up to them and meet people. That's a great way. I'm trying to think what else. Social media. I was going to say social media. I mean,
it's how we met.
Yeah, I was going to say probably 90% of my dive buddies realistically are met on social media. So those are all the options if you're not a social media person, which totally understand. You do not have to be a social media person to meet dive buddies. Those are all options. But that being said, just being online and seeing other people who post content, DMing them, being like, hey, it looks like you're in my area, blah, 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 we should dive, whatever, interacting with their, I've met so many people. At this point, I'm like, I don't think there's a place in the entire world I probably couldn't go diving where
there's someone that you don't know, you don't have a connection with.
Yeah, or I could find a connection to because of social media.
Yeah, it makes you worldwide, really.
It's wild. It's wild.
Crazy. It's cool. It's good.
So if that's your jam, that's another great way. But again, if you're not a social media person or don't want your social media to be public like that or whatever, that's totally fine, totally understandable, totally cool. Get yourself the Buddy app, get yourself in local Facebook groups, pop into local events. Those are all alternatives.
Absolutely. So to wrap up the episode, we almost have a little game we're going to play. And that is red flags and green flags of your dive instructors, but also your students. So maybe we'll go flag for flag.
Flag for flag.
So my first red flag, we'll do instructors first. Okay. So if you see your instructor do this, it's a red flag. My first one, having their mask on their forehead.
Ooh, yeah.
Dirty.
So tidbit of that, mask on your forehead is no longer a thing that means I'm panicking, but it is a fantastic way to lose a mask. So this is the thing that happens is that sometimes it's like, oh, well, I'm in a pool. It doesn't matter, but it's like creating the habit.
Exactly.
So that you don't think about it. So it's like you spend every single time you're teaching a class with a mask on your forehead, and then you get into the ocean not thinking about it, put that mask on your forehead. Yeah, you're going to lose. Even just sometimes climbing back onto the ladder, it's not even necessarily a wave has to hit you or anything. It's just that mask is going. Also, it's fogging up your freaking mask.
Yes. Back
to the heat escaping from your head. Your forehead too, dum-dum. Now you're just fogging up your mask like crazy. Get that ish off your head.
That's right. So yeah, that's my red flag. If your instructor has their mask on their forehead.
My instructor green flag is somebody who like really takes time to answer all of your questions and isn't just like we're on a strict schedule and pushing it through. Or like I had, okay, this, I don't know, you could take this as a red flag or a green flag, I guess. But I technically had to kick someone out of a class once for having too many questions, but it wasn't, I mean, it was like, this is our time restraint for a group class. I want to answer all these questions for you, and you deserve to have all the answers for these questions and take it at an extremely methodical rate, but we're going to have to do that in a private lesson.
And I think that's totally fair because you're still accommodating your student, but you also have an understanding that there is a certain amount of pool time allotted and every person in a group class, you know, deserves the same amount of attention, etc. So if someone is asking you questions for hours and hours and hours, then yeah, I think a private setting is fair in that sense.
Yeah. But anyway, they very much deserve to have every single
question answered.
You know what I mean? Like every little bit dug into. She was super, super interested. You know what I mean? She like really wanted to go into all of the things, which was fantastic. She was one of my best students ever.
Yes.
But it just was like, okay, well, the rest of the class needs to move on. Like,
and I think too, like I know for us, and not every dive shop is in this situation, but we rent our pool, so our pool time is rented time,
right?
And you know, we do only have so much time in the pool. So I typically tell people, like, when we're in the pool, we're in the pool. And if we want to talk, like, we'll do that when we're not paying money to be in a space. So when we're in the pool, let's do our skills. But, you know, after we're finished, if you want to stand in the parking lot with me and ask me 100 questions, then that is totally acceptable. Or if you want to follow me back to the dive shop, I'll answer any and all questions that you have. So I agree. Good green flag.
Another thing that I would do sometimes if it was like we don't have time to answer this right at this exact specific moment is like if you have like a slate, usually instructors have slates, I'll like jot myself down a little note on what the topic or the thing was, because there's so much happening in the pool that otherwise like you totally forget about it. So leaving yourself some sort of little note to be like, we'll get back to this, I'll explain this to you deeper or whatever, but doesn't just like, we don't have time for this, moving on, fuck your question, basically. Like there's having a timeline to a point, I guess is what I'm saying. Like if you're just being rushed through without you being able to mentally, I guess, understand things, but also like skill wise, they're letting you make mistakes and really perfect things before pushing you off to the next section is a huge green flag. You should be able to not just have to do the skill once and then move on.
Adequate practice until you feel as though you have mastered it.
Mastery, yeah. That it's you. If you did it perfectly the first time, that's great. But
do it again.
Comfortability, and it's not just a rush, boom, boom, boom through everything. You've done it a few times. You feel comfortable with it, and they're allowing you that space and time to do that.
100%. I feel like this kind of leads into my next red flag, because my red flag is an instructor who is very cocky and brags a lot. So let me set the scene. You show up for your open water course, quite possibly the first time you've ever been diving, and your instructor decides their intro is to talk all about their decompression diving and their rebreather and their cave diving and blah, 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 and that they know it all and this and that and another thing and why all this recreational stuff sucks, blah, 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 blah. Because I've definitely seen that before. And I think that they are absolutely a talented diver, but maybe an open water course isn't the place they should be.
Yeah, the belittling of the open water and just recreational as a whole is a definite red flag. Green flag, small class size ratios.
Ooh, yes.
If you are in a class where there's like an instructor and like 6 dive masters and 18, 20 plus students,
It's not going to cut it.
I just think it goes to show that it usually, I think, is that we're trying to push student. It's
You're pumping them out.
quantity over quality. That's what it is.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
100%.
When you have smaller class sizes, I think you get a lot more attention, space, and time for actually developing your skills. So usually, well, in my experience, 6 students was max what I think I've ever had. Sometimes, very rarely, 8, but I find that I like the 6 and under ratio. Me, a dive master, 6 students or less is a nice number.
It is. That is a nice number. I agree. Yep. Good ones. Should we move on to our student red and green
Students.
flags? All right. So you're going to love this one. My student actually, you know what? This could go as a red flag turned green flag. Is a student who shows up and they have been using uncertified a snorky or one of those kind of spare air devices, and then they come in very cocky, which I hate those things, but I think the turned green flag is that maybe they've decided to get an education in scuba and they're bettering themselves.
Yeah, I hate those things. Hate them.
I've had a few people on courses who have come and have been using those basically as like advanced snorkeling tools, which is a great way to injure yourself or even potentially kill yourself. Anyhow, most of the time they actually leave the open water course going, wow, I can't believe I was doing that, because they did not realize how unsafe it was. So it's like a starting out as a red flag turned green flag, because hopefully they learned something from it.
Right. Yeah, that's a good one. Mine was going to be students who don't allow themselves to like get frustrated and give up, that like are like that continue like they challenge can't challenge themselves, you know what I mean? Like I've definitely had people that walk in and they like hit that first struggle and they're just done, down and out immediately. And so it's the people who don't allow themselves to get bogged down with the, you know what I mean?
Yes, they remain positive. Yes.
Yeah. Obviously, with like assistance, it's good to make sure you keep your class, you, yourself, them, and the overall mentality of the class in a positive, we can do it. Like, you know, everybody's being supportive of each other. But yeah, for sure, especially when there's somebody who's just really like down on it, like brings the whole mood of everybody down. So somebody who's very like gung-ho about mastering these skills and is very supportive of other students in the class, wanting to be like uplifting, excited, and upbeat for the whole class and everything. Those are my green flag students.
Nice. That's a great one. One more red flag from me for students would be students who show up and either have cheaped out on equipment, like gone to Walmart and bought a really shitty mask to do their course with, or aren't willing to put in a small investment into something that is literally breathing underwater. So the people who buy dollar store masks or $10 masks, I understand that it's new. You aren't sure if you're going to like it and everything like that. But there is a reason that, you know, sometimes scuba is expensive and sometimes it's worth it for a small investment. And, you know, a lot of times I tell people, you know, if you make the small, like, $200 investment and get yourself a good mask, a good snorkel, a good set of fins, you're so much more committed to the sport. And it's like you have money into it, you own equipment, you've got skin in the game, and you are way more likely to carry on. So I would say, yeah, kind of my red flag is just people who are kind of half-assing it, essentially.
Yeah. Green flag, would be a student kind of in the same vein of wanting to challenge themselves, but just that they're not like they like don't want to just like breeze through the skills also. They do want to like sit and take the time to actually master them and understand. So like asking question, being the student that asks questions, gets clarification, tries things a couple of times rather than just being like, oh, I did it. I took my mask off
Did it. Done.
and I put it back on and I'm done.
They understand why they're doing everything. I have such a funny story about this, actually. So
Yeah.
I was teaching open water in the pool, private, one-on-one, to a 12-year-old last week. And we did the seesaw in the pool, and he did a great job, performed the seesaw perfectly. And we got to the surface, and we were kind of doing our debrief. And I was like, okay, so great job on the seesaw, blah, 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 blah. Just trying to make sure he understood it. And I was like, do you remember why we go, all the way to the surface? And he goes, so that the other divers can hear us and know we're in trouble, which is an adorable answer. But it's like, okay, so you don't fully understand why we're doing a seesaw.
Right.
You think we're going, so that other divers can hear us yelling for help.
Fire, fire.
Not that we need to exhale all the way to the surface. So, yes, that's a great green flag. Essentially, the diver who's willing to practice, and thoroughly understand why they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah. Ask questions. Yeah, don't be shy to ask questions. Like we said, there's like certain time restrictions and whatever, but like we want you to ask questions. We want you to understand what it is, why you're doing it, et cetera, et cetera. So
100%. I think that wraps us up for our little takeover. I think we took over. We conquered.
We certainly did.
Well, it was great chatting with you. Always happy to catch up with my, I don't know.
Scuba soulmate.
My scuba soulmate. Scuba sister. My
Sister.
My sister.
Sister. All right, ladies.
If you've made it this far, if you listened, I hope you enjoyed our advice, our tips, our stories, our tricks, whatever it was. I hope you celebrate Women's Dive Day and celebrate all that you are and what an asset you are to this industry and this world of diving, because we love you all. And we're all sisters, really.
Sisters, because we are sisters. We stand together. All right, folks. Fin folks.
Fin folks.
Fin folks, mer people, sisters.
Shallow. Wrap it up. Well, we call this a maritime goodbye because where I'm from, you say goodbye and then you stand around for like another 45 minutes and say goodbye and talk, and then you say goodbye. And goodbye takes 45 minutes. We call it a maritime goodbye.
All right, folks.
All right. That's it. That's all.
That's a wrap. We'll talk to you next time we take over.
Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.
You can follow us on social
Oh, yeah,
media.
we can do this. Plug the socials. God damn it. Follow us on social media.
I'm on Instagram as Fully Submerged Scuba. Most other places, Fully Submerged. If you want to be a spooky little skeleton diver like me, you can follow Fully Submerged Swimwear. I make skeleton suits and other spooky things.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at April Weichert. You can also find Torpedo Rays, our dive shop, at Torpedo Rays, and Sea Foxes Lady Dive Club at Sea Foxes. If you want to tune into my TV show, jump in. You can find season 1 on YouTube, and season 2 is out in Canada, but should be coming to YouTube next year. And we're going to keep rolling with that. I don't have any merch to sell, but go buy Olivia's stuff because it's super cool. And now I'm co-designer after this episode.
Our pissing suits coming soon. I dribbled down my leg.
Let her rip. It's coming out. Let her rip 2025.
Off-gassing, a scuba podcast.